No one invited me to the big Emmanuel Cleaver and Sharice Davids event last night. Jeez, did you guys get the invite? Oh, okay. All right.
I had something to wear, too. Picked out, ready to go.
You could have just worn what you put on Easter Sunday and just, brought it back out for Monday night.
Sure.
I mean, geez. I didn't get the invite. Mark, did you get the invite last night to the big event?
No, not technically. I saw that there was no seats available, allegedly.
Oh, that's bull.
There was open seats I saw on the video.
Bull. Who told you there were no open seats?
I just saw that on Sharice David's Twitter.
Oh, my gosh. Saying what, it was a packed house?
No, she said you could watch it on YouTube, but there was no seats left.
That is nonsense. I saw it with my own two eyes last night. Oh, please.
Oh, I saw that picture. I thought that was like America's Got Talent, a ventriloquist act thing they were doing there. Sometimes I look at people on TMZ, and I thought maybe I got screwed up there.
No, you didn't. Emmanuel Cleaver and Sharice Davids held a big event yesterday, and I used the word big generously, but National Panhandler Radio put on the show because, they're trying to protect their federal funding that hopefully gets whacked like yesterday. And they did a little town hall with KCOR. Both lawmakers addressed multiple concerns, writes Channel 9 KMBC, raised by attendees, including federal budget cuts, immigration, and voting rights. Oh, you mean the made-up issue of voting rights? They're still going down that road, I guess. So Cleaver and David show up to this event, and it was not a packed house. I'm looking at video footage right now. Mark, you could have been there. There's no reason that you could not have been there last night on behalf of KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, the players only get so many tickets to a game, so maybe her allotment was.
Yeah, I guess that might be it, John. You guys are so generous and so thoughtful here on a Tuesday morning. But here is part of KMBC Channel 9's reporting as to what last night was all about and what the intended purpose was.
Cleaver and Davids touched a multitude of concerns facing Americans, including federal cuts, immigration, and voting rights. Cleaver says now is the time to keep protesting and getting all voices heard.
Oh, really? Now's the time for him to keep protesting. That's right. Keep doing it, big fella.
You mustard moo.
Yep, go ahead. You keep doing it there, Cleaver. You keep protesting. You keep giving me those drops and those sound bites. I'll let you protest all day, every day, twice on Sunday, okay?
Still, though, David says there's been some bipartisanship in Washington.
There are places where we can find to work with our Republican colleagues on things like the student visas being revoked, like the Medicaid proposed cuts.
If we started right now.
There's Sharice Davids, right? Doing her best, who knows what, just saying, middle of the road, bipartisan. It's like her handlers just tell her, go out there. Doesn't matter how much sense you make. Just say the word bipartisan every 32 seconds or so, and you'll be fine. Because I have no idea what she was going for there. All right, let's get back to the musty moo-moo himself.
Working in every little precinct. That's hard work, but that's what we have to do.
Also important mentioning that Republican lawmakers were invited tonight, but they either declined or did not respond. At 10, we'll hear from more what people here had to say.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a shocker that Mark Alford, Sam Graves, Derek Schmidt, Josh Hawley, Eric Schmidt, Jerry Moran, Roger Marshall. I know, it's a stunner they wouldn't show up to such an event.
Talk about a bombshell.
Would have never seen that coming. Like, Mark Alford had things to do last night, like sleep, like eat dinner, like use the toilet, like not go to a KCOR National Panhandler radio event hosted by Steve Kraske, who's a decent man, but let's be honest, that would have been an unfriendly setting. And, if like I was co-hosting it and you had NPR on the other side, that might have been good. Like, if they were smart about it, they would have reached out to us and they would have said, hey, why don't we co-host this deal? You can get, some Republicans. We'll bring the musty moo-moo and Sharice, and let's have a good time. If they were serious about it, that's how it would have gone down. But there is no way that they would have been intellectually honest with any Republican in that setting when Republicans are dead set on defunding their operation. and they should be set on defunding their operation. There is zero reason for NPR to give or to get a dime. I mean, literally, a dime is too much for them to get from the federal government. Those days are over. They want to fundraise and crowdsource and hand out koozies and, whatever else they got. Sure, fine, go ahead. But the idea that our tax dollars are used to fund national public radio is an embarrassment to our tax dollars. And that's hard to do. Now that we learn how much DOJ, of course, is finding in terms of wasteful taxpayer dollars. So nothing came out of it last night, but I just wanted to let you know that none of us got the invite, or the invites got lost in the mail, which you might be actually able to use as an excuse with USPS these days. That's entirely possible. Now, in Jackson County yesterday, disappointingly, Frank White, of course, vetoed a piece of legislation on Friday, which would have just said, hey, comply with state law, comply with the Missouri State Tax Commission, roll those 2023 property assessments to a maximum of 15%. Frank vetoes it on Friday, and yesterday, the Jackson County legislature failed to override Frank White's veto by one vote. They needed 6-3 to override it. They only had 5-4. The four legislators hanging with Frank White, Megan Marshall, Jeannie Lauer, Charlie Franklin, and Jalen Anderson, they voted to uphold White's veto. Why? It's not clear to me. At some point, you have to wonder what exactly Frank has on these four. Megan Marshall saying this ordinance does not fix the issues the community deserve or fix the assessment process. It doesn't matter. What it does is it hits the reset button on the entire deal. It brings it back to a number that is a fair number based on the way that the assessment process was handled 2 years ago. That's what it does. And yes, I understand the money has been spent by the taxing jurisdictions. I understand the school board money, the city monies, the county monies. Like, I get all that. But remember, your property assessment is kind of like the baseline for how everything is determined with your taxes. So getting that number back to where it needs to be then allows you to build off of that for 2025 and beyond. It doesn't even necessarily mean that your property taxes will go down tremendously, because if these jurisdictions change their mill levy rates, then of course the property taxes may not go down a whole lot. But at least it gives you a fair number to work with on the assessment number, which is the baseline for everything that your property values or your property taxes are based off of. So for Megan Marshall to say, oh, we need to lead with responsibility, that was one of her quotes here to Channel 9 KMBC. You have got to be kidding me. You can't vote with Frank White and then tell me that we need to lead with responsibility. I don't know if Frank's seen the inside of the building he works in weeks, if not months. No one knows. No one sees him anywhere.
Not there yesterday.
Of course not, right? Gearing up for the Monarch season in 3 weeks. I mean, that is such an insult to the Jackson County taxpayer and the Jackson County voter for somebody to vote to protect Frank White and defend Frank White and then utter the words, we need to lead with responsibility, saying this ordinance is a reaction and not a solution. No, it actually is. It's a solution to complying with the Missouri State Tax Commission. It's a solution to comply with what the state is requiring you, Jackson County, to do because of how you have failed the taxpayer to this point. So now we wait. Andrew Bailey is the Attorney General. He is going to be here at 7:50 this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. I will ask him about his role in this potentially. But now what are the options? Well, the legislature has to regroup. They could ask the Attorney General to remove Frank White. There could be another ordinance with more details. They could try to remove Gail McCann Beatty, who is the Jackson County assessor. There are options, But all this does now is kick the can down the road because don't forget those 2025 assessments are set to be coming out in the next several weeks. And those numbers on those assessments are based off of 2023. And the 2023 assessments are the ones that are right now still being debated and still causing all the problems for homeowners. So this thing is far from over. 913-4087-957. It is great to be here at 6:15 on a Tuesday morning on KCMO 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Well, where are people at when it comes to confidence in their finances? The number's not good, and it could have an impact on where the economy goes from here. I'll explain next on KCMO. 13%, that's the number in a 2,000-person survey who feel very good about their economic situation. 84% believe financial planning is more important than ever during economic uncertainty. 13% who are sitting there right now on April 22nd and feel very good about their finances. That is not a good number. And it's a number that could harm not just Donald Trump, but, of course, the Republican Party. Now, there is a long ways to go before anybody is on the ballot again. We've got, 19, 20 months until that happens again in the midterms of 2026. But remember, we saw a major shift in the last election. You saw Kamala Harris backed by largely people who are making six figures or more, and you saw this working class shift towards President Trump. Now, it doesn't mean that people are going to say, you know what, I don't feel good about my finances, and I'm going to go out there and vote for the other party. There's a lot that goes into the differences right now between these two political parties. But when I saw this yesterday, I thought to myself, we know what Trump's trying to do. I got his back on all this. I know many of you do as well, but he is playing a game here that could backfire. So the markets were down again yesterday. Dow shed about 900 points. The futures right now, as of this morning, have the Dow up about 290 points. So there's still a lot of turmoil in the stock market, which I know is not Main Street and not the economy, but it still matters. And the markets are concerned, obviously, that these trade deals are not getting announced. Trump's got to pick up a couple of wins. It's kind of like the Royals. You know, the Royals had to get that win on Sunday to avoid a 4-game sweep. And as Keatsman was talking about with Mark on Friday and then yesterday, he felt that if the Royals got swept in that 4-game set by Detroit, he thought their season was over. Salvaging the last game of that 4-game series was a big confidence boost to end that road trip, go into a day off yesterday, and then start a 3-game series against the awful Rockies today. It's a mindset as much as it is anything else. Trump needs to stack up a couple of wins here on trade deals, ideally this week. It's kind of like winning that 4th game of the series if you've lost the first 3. And not that he's losing the series just yet, but you got to give the fan base some confidence that we got something to work with here. And in the case of Donald Trump, the fan base is not just those of us who voted for him, but also investors on Wall Street. He's got to show something here like, hey, we're making moves. We got some trade deals lined up. We got a deal announced with fill in the blank, Japan, with, we're renegotiating some stuff with Mexico, Canada. Just start rolling out some small wins. It's like the Dave Ramsey snowball, right? You stack up some small victories. You pay off some small debts. You roll that into the big ones. We know what the big kahuna is here. The big kahuna is China. But China also needs to see that Trump and this administration are getting some wins and getting some deals. Because if I'm Xi right now, if I'm China, I'm just kicking my feet up and saying, dude, you started this whole thing. Let's see you get some trade deals done and then come and talk to us. The Chinese people don't care about, or the Chinese government doesn't care about its own people. Like, they don't care about some pain for their people. They don't have to go back to the polls in a year. Xi doesn't have to worry about that. So from that standpoint, he's got some leverage in this situation because he's willing to put his people through some pain because he frankly doesn't really care. Trump obviously does care, and he has to care, politically speaking, for his own political party. So that's where Xi's got some leverage in this whole thing. And then you've also got the element of Jerome Powell. He's the Fed chair who Trump wants fired. Wall Street is saying it doesn't want Jerome Powell fired. Not yet. The question is, should Trump be allowed to fire Jerome Powell? Charlie Gasparino said on Friday on this show he believes that he can. But right now, Trump is kind of trying to beat up Powell a little bit on social media and get him to blink first. He wants Powell to cut interest rates. He's telling Powell publicly, and I would imagine privately, that inflation is down big time. Cut rates, help people get some relief on the short term. But what people are saying to Trump behind the scenes is, don't worry right now about short-term rates. Look at the 10-year. That's what matters right now. That's what you should care about for restructuring all this debt that the United States is dealing with right now. The 10-year is the number that Trump needs to focus on. And they're not wrong suggesting that to him. The short-term rates and bringing down interest rates will figure itself out. If Trump gets interest rates down next year at this time, thanks to an economy that is in much better shape, it'll be full steam ahead for the midterms. Like, I think he's a little too worried about where rates are at today, when if this all works out as he's got planned, 2026, after maybe a turbulent 2025, 2026 is going to be off to the races. You extend the Trump tax cuts. You cut some new trade deals. You cut spending tremendously. You get inflation down. You can start then doing all those things late this year, early next year. And one thing we know about the American people, and I'm speaking for all of us, we have short-term memories. 2025 and the roller coaster ride we're on right now will feel like a lifetime ago by spring of 26 if Trump's vision comes to fruition. It is arguably a big if, but if it does, what's going on right now is going to be mostly irrelevant because we live in a quarter-to-quarter, heck, a month-to-month world. We barely remember what happened last week. The news cycle moves so quickly. And all we care about, and this is not the best thing for the country by any stretch, but all we care about is how we feel right now, in the moment. And our memories are totally shot. So for Trump, I'd worry less about Powell. I'd try to stack up some trade deals, get some wins, and then get to the ultimate big fish. And we know what that is. And that, of course, is the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And let the markets do their thing because they are acting like teenage girls a little bit there. A little bit. Overreaction. But, that's what they do. 913-408-7957, our text line and our studio line on KCMO Talk Radio. 6 at 6 is coming up in 15 minutes. News is 2 minutes away. As one state is moving to protect kids from social media dangers. We'll tell you who and why next. Happy Tuesday. It is great to have you here. As Greg Bennett said on the weather forecast, a beautiful day ahead in Kansas City. And I'll tell you what, I am jealous of Florida's leadership in politics with Ron DeSantis. I am jealous of the Florida legislature. We've got solid legislatures here in Kansas and Missouri. We've got a very good governor on the Missouri side of the state line. God willing, we'll have a much better governor on the Kansas side of the state line come November of 2026, but that's a million years away. But Florida continues to lead the way on protecting kids, especially when it comes to social media. So last year, you had Florida become one of the most restrictive states in the country when it comes to kids' social media use. Ron DeSantis signed a bill last year that would ban and did ban social media accounts for children under 14 and required parental permission for 14 and 15-year-olds. So that was fantastic. And in the last couple of weeks, a federal judge weighed in on this and basically said, you know what, for now, it's going to be okay. He heard the oral arguments. This was, 5 weeks ago or so, and came back and said, listen, we're going to let this thing stand. So that's good. Now what's going on, and this is a report I just saw on Fox News earlier this morning, their attorney general is looking at a lawsuit against Snapchat. And that is also because Snapchat's not doing a good enough job protecting minors on its platforms. This is something that Roger Marshall in Kansas tried to get done on a federal level. This was after Cooper Davis died from a fentanyl poisoning back in 2021. He was a Mill Valley High School kid. His parents now have the Cooper Davis 5K run walk. We'll be participating in that the Saturday of Father's Day at Mill Valley High School. You can also partake in the run walk at CooperDavisMemorialFoundation.org. I'm looking forward to being a part of that as we were last year as well. It's a great cause, and it really is about bringing fentanyl awareness to Kansas City schools and Kansas City kids. They're doing things they know they shouldn't be doing, but now this stuff is laced with just enough fentanyl where it can kill you. And these kids don't know that fentanyl is in some of these drugs that they're taking. So that's coming up here the Saturday of Father's Day. But Roger Marshall tried to, on a federal level, make it so that Snapchat in particular had to be much more engaged in drug deals that were going on Snapchat. Because Snapchat is the one app where the messages just disappear after a certain amount of time. I don't know how long it is. I had a moment probably 10 years ago where I was using Snapchat a little bit, and I have not used it in probably a decade. But it's like a messaging app, also for photos. It's kind of like Instagram, but everything just disappears. So obviously, if you're someone who's trying to break the law, that is a great place to do it on Snapchat. So Florida's Attorney General may be suing Snapchat. They're looking into that per Fox News this morning. I would love for Roger Marshall's bill to come back to the forefront in D.C. now that Republicans have all the control, where Snapchat and all of these social media apps are required to do a better job of alerting local law enforcement about potential illegal activity that may be happening on their platforms. These lobbyists for these big tech companies, I mean, they get away, figuratively speaking, with murder on this stuff. And now you might say, hey, we're the town square. We're not in charge of anybody trying to do drug deals. Like, I get that to a degree, a little bit. But heck, I mean, Craigslist got beat up over the head because there was illicit activity going on their website. And nobody cared. No one was like, oh, we got to protect Craigslist. It was like, no, if there is illicit activity happening on this website, you got to do something about it. And Craigslist got beat up over that, as they should have. So why are we not doing that with Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram? Why are we not looking more into that? It seems like a very obvious thing to do. Now, on a similar note, this was announced yesterday that Instagram is testing the use of artificial intelligence to flag underage users who lie about their age. This is part of new measures to better protect teens online. Meta made this announcement yesterday. The platform will now proactively look for teen accounts it suspects belongs to underage users, even if those users entered a false birth date when signing up. The app has used AI to estimate users' ages in the past, but the new approach represents a more aggressive strategy. Meta says it has trained its AI to detect signals like account activity, profile details, and content interactions to flag users who may have misrepresented their age. Count me in. I mean, this is a job well done by Meta. Mark, I know your oldest has the smartphone. Is she on any of these social media apps just yet?
No.
You're not allowing her?
No, we're going to keep her off of those for a long time.
All right. What's your thinking on when you will allow her to open up a social media account?
Hopefully, I mean...
What is this hopefully crap? You're the parent, Mark.
I know. Well, right now, we don't let her download anything that we don't think she should have. So, in my mind, 18.
Oh, that's right. I like that, man. Stand on those 2 feet, brother. So you're thinking 18.
Hopefully.
All right.
That's what we're pushing for.
My guess is you'll settle on 16.
I could see that.
At least for the oldest.
Yeah.
At least for the oldest. That's just, listen, I want to be wrong on that. But if you're asking me the over-under 17.5 mark, I'm going to take the under on that one.
Okay.
All right? But if you hit the over, I will be very proud of you. And I will follow your lead with my 3 girls if you hit the over on that. You with me, John?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not looking forward to trying to get my account unlocked. It's such a pain to deal with them when they bust you.
Well, John famously had his Twitter, it was then Twitter account shut down after about a half hour of opening it because he was following all the wrong accounts.
Apparently.
Like, me and Josh Hawley and Trump and all these people.
Well, I mixed a few in there. I had Claire McCaskill at the time.
That's right.
I did.
You did.
I was equal opportunity. So I thought. Didn't count for anything.
Well, now we got to try to reactivate your account, John. That's what we have to do. Actually, that sounds like way too much work, so I'm going to pass on that. Oh, yeah. What happens first? John reactivates his ex, or Mark allows his daughter on a social media account? The over-under on that is about 7 years out, right?
Yeah, I don't think John's getting back on, so
No.
I think I'm going to lose that one.
Yeah, I think you are as well. I'm with you there. But this is the moment right now. I sent Kate a Instagram I saw yesterday, and I thought it was just spot on for kind of where we're at in this world of social media and kids and how to handle it. And it was about how the millennial generation in particular is the last generation that knows what it's like to grow up and not have basically a computer in your hands at all times. Here's what it read, and I'm posting this on my Instagram right now, at Pete Mundo. You can see it there. It says, millennial parents, of which I'm one and Mark's one, are the most important generation. Now, I'm not saying this to pat ourselves on the back, but it says here, we are the last to remember life before the internet, before social media, when we rode bikes until the streetlights came on and the boredom sparked creativity. This shift rivals the industrial age. It is up to us to define what childhood looks like next. I thought that was outstanding. Because after us, every generation after the millennials grew up with the smartphone for the most part. They got it at a pretty early age. And if you missed Christine White, Freedom Pediatrics here in Kansas City, she was on the show Friday for our Feature Friday segment. She was outstanding as a pediatrician explaining the downside of these smartphones and what they can do to these kids' brains, especially when they're not kept in check. And I thought that post was a tremendous reminder as a millennial myself, thinking about what the future holds and not trying to deny the way of the world. Like, we all know technology is a huge part of the world. It's like anything else. When and how do you choose to introduce it? Yesterday morning, we had a great conversation with you about this company, Fiserv, that was being reported as coming to Overland Park and taking over the spring campus. And yesterday, it became official. Governor Laura Kelly announced after we got off the air that her office has partnered with Fiserv. They're a financial tech company, and they will be opening up a new strategic fintech hub in Overland Park, saying that will solidify about 2,000 more jobs for the state. Now, pump it right there. It will not add 2,000 jobs to the state. Let's be honest. There will be some people that come from out of state, but a lot of those hires, and I know, are going to be people just moving from one job in the Kansas City area to this job in the Kansas City area. Politicians always do this, right? They always say, it's going to add 2,000 jobs. A lot of those jobs are going to be people who are here already who will then move to work for Fiserv. And that's fine. I mean, that creates competition in the marketplace. But let's just call it what it is. You're not adding 2,000 jobs. It's like when, some insist the Chiefs going from, say, the Truman Sports Complex to KCK. You'll hear, if that were to happen, Kansas lawmakers say, we're bringing thousands of jobs. No, you're just transferring them 15 miles. That's all you're doing. Like, no one's moving to Kansas City to work at Arrowhead Stadium 8 Sundays a year. It's not the case. This a little bit different, but still, it's always a little bit overblown. According to Governor Kelly, Fortune 500 company will be built on the old Spring campus. Of course, that means the Royals will not go there. So Basset Hound Bob over on 610 Sports taking another L today, which, fine by me, I guess. He's got enough of those for a while. He should probably just hang tight, stay quiet, let the big boys handle this one from here on out. But I know you got to kill some time when you're a sports talk show host in this town and it's not football season. I get it. I understand. But yeah, I guess the Royals are not dotting the I's and crossing the T's for the spring campus anymore, huh? So Fiserv said Overland Park was chosen because of its centrality in the country, as well as its affordable living and proximity to the company's Midwest client base. So yesterday I was talking about this, and one of the big issues I had was the 10-year property tax abatement that Overland Park was going to give Fiserv. At the same time, when the average Overland Park resident has seen an increase in their property taxes over the last several years. Now, Overland Park officials who I talked with over the last 24 hours or so were obviously not happy with some of that commentary. And I talked to multiple people in and around the Overland Park government over the last 24 hours about this. And, of course, they argued that, hey, this Fiserv company is going to dump $100 million into renovations of the spring campus. So a 10-year property tax abatement to them feels like an appropriate trade-off. And they also said this is not about the schools. This is just going to be for the city of Overland Park on this 10-year property tax abatement. And they'll say, hey, we had to beat out Nashville and some of the other cities around the country, and this is part of how you have to negotiate. And I understand that. It's the same thing we see with these baseball stadiums or these football stadiums, right? Unfortunately, this is part of the way that the game is played. And I'm sympathetic to that because that is a reality of the situation. And I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it if Overland Park was not also blowing out its budget. And that was what I was talking about yesterday. I mean, Overland Park had a budget in 2021 of about $300 million. Their 2025 budget is $467 million. That is a 56% increase in the budget of the city of Overland Park over the last half a decade. That is unsustainable. And a lot of that, of course, is driven through property taxes. Now, a lot of that is sales taxes, too. I get it. Overland Park residents also approved an additional sales tax for their roads, right? Like that was something that was approved in the last couple of years by the residents. So that's also additional monies that people outside of Overland Park are paying for roads in Overland Park. I understand all of that. But I also looked at the data this morning, and Overland Park has not exactly grown tremendously over the last few years. Overland Park's population has been more or less stable for the last few years at about 197,000 going back to 2020. There was a big boom from 2010 to 2020. It went from 175,000 to about 195,000. But the last few years, according to the data I'm looking at here, has it right around 197,000. It's not like it's grown 50% to justify a 50% spike in the budget. That hasn't happened. Now, as I noted yesterday, inflation is a dirty little trick that actually benefits municipalities because they operate largely off of sales taxes and then, of course, property taxes. And if inflation goes up 20% over 5 years, which just happened in this country, and everything is 20% more expensive, well, guess what? They're getting 20% more than they were getting on sales taxes. It's just a fact. If your egg prices or whatever goes up 20%, they're collecting 20% more on the sales tax side for the city. So the dirty little secret is that inflation actually is okay for the government. They benefit from inflation in a weird way. You get screwed further, but they benefit. Home prices go up, obviously. They benefit. They can say that their tax rates, their property tax rates are staying where they're at, but if your value goes up on your home, you're still paying more, right? Just because they're not changing the rate doesn't mean they're doing you any favors. If they were doing you a favor, they would lower their property tax mill levy rate to basically not take as much of your money because an asset that you live in went up in value. That doesn't really provide you anything. Unless you're trying to take equity out of your home, there's no inherent value in your home going up by 20% the last couple of years. But it gives the government this idea that they can take more money out of your pocket because the home that you live in, that most people are not trying to take equity out of right now because rates are so high, went up in value. It's a shell game. And that's why the Fiserv abatement bothered me the most, because many in Johnson County and across the Kansas City region, for that matter, we know about the mess in Jackson County, are feeling the pinch on this property tax issue. So what does it say to the Overland Park residents when they're seeing their property taxes go up, even though the rate's staying the same? But that's irrelevant. Nobody wants to hear, frankly, about how, well, don't worry, your rate didn't go up. Okay, but you're taking more money. So I don't care about the rate. I do not care about the rate. You're taking more money. So it's that angle, along with the Fiserv property tax abatement, that when you put them together is bothersome to a lot of residents. And I am more than sympathetic to that. And, you know, overall, Overland Park is a great place to live. I don't deny that. I don't live there, but I don't deny that. We all understand that, right? And that's where I would also say if Overland Park is a great place to live, and we know that it is, great place to live, really good place to do business, then the other part of me says, you know what, Overland Park should say, Fiserv, you want to come here because of our location and our quality of life? We'd love to have you. But how much are we willing to bend over for you? Stand on the value that you think you provide a company like Fiserv. Maybe that's too idealistic, but if anyone could pull it off in this region, it's Overland Park. And, you know, I still think that you can look at the budget and say a 50% increase, 56% increase over the last half a decade is an unsustainable growth path on the budget for a city like Overland Park. Kansas City, Missouri, over that same time period, has increased its budget 25%, from $2 billion to $2.5 billion. Overland Park's up 56%. Olathe is up 44%. These Johnson County municipalities are all of them. It's not exclusive to Overland Park, but they are all largely blowing out their budget the last half a decade. And there's not a lot of evidence to suggest that it is a sustainable model that they can keep up with for the next half decade, unless they want to drive people eventually out of their communities, which is obviously not the goal and should not be the goal. 7:15 on a Tuesday. It's good to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Dave Schraubert, bottom of the hour, Kansas Policy Institute. Do not miss our conversation with him. And Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General for the state of Missouri, will be here at 7:50. And we got a lot to get to him about. Mayor Lucas is calling him out. Jackson County may need his help. So two big conversations on the back end of the hour on 95.7 FM KCMO and streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. We have not provided a morning update on the Maryland man, have we? Now, we got to get the sales team to get like the Maryland Visitors Bureau or visitmaryland.org or someone with the Chamber of Commerce there to get a sponsorship on the show because, it's all the country's talking about this Kilmar Abrego Garcia fella, and he's just been dubbed Maryland father, Maryland man. Maryland's got a lot of free publicity coming out of this, John.
I've got my Maryland flag up. Right?
That's right. See, I don't know where the Worksters are going to fit that in. They had the Palestinian flag. Mm-hmm. They've got the LGBTQIA plus flag. Now they got the Maryland flag. I mean, they got to have a lot of flagpoles on their front yards these days to properly fit their wokeness into their agenda on the front lawns.
Well, this looks like a Navy cruiser with semaphores. Yeah. Just they're all on one pole.
Oh, man. So last night, this was hilarious, and it's courtesy of Fox News. They had a man on the street going through Baltimore, Maryland, asking folks about Kilmar Abrego Garcia and whether or not, he should be here in Maryland or whether he should be in El Salvador. And let's just put it this way. It did not go how the Chris Van Hollens of the world would have expected it to go.
He was living in Maryland, designated MS-13 terrorist, and Donald Trump deported him. Mm-hmm. How does that make you feel?
I feel safer.
He gotta go. He gotta go.
Need to go. I mean, that's it.
But he was a father.
But he's still a terrorist.
Okay. I mean, but there's children living without fathers now. He should have picked and choose, so he picked to be a terrorist instead of worrying about his children.
The Democrats, they want him back. They say he was wrongfully deported. He has a wife and a kid who's a citizen. They're calling this a national emergency. Is this a national emergency?
I wouldn't call it a national emergency. We got more things going on.
We have more things, more fish to fry.
I just found out about it, so I don't think so. What kind of national emergency? For what? What is the emergency for?
Ain't no national emergency, no.
He was accused of hitting his wife twice and was a suspected human smuggler. Was he wrongfully deported?
No. He need to go.
If he's a smuggler, yeah, he needs to be deported.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Your senator here, Chris Van Hollen, he flew to El Salvador where this guy was deported. He met with them, had lunch with them, had margaritas on the table. What's up with your senator?
I have no idea, but I do believe that was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Margaritas! Oh, my goodness, margaritas! That's exactly right.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money?
No, Chris Van Halen is not worth your Red Lobster money. I promise you that. He's a garbage U.S. senator, is what he is. And now he's made a name for himself by going down to El Salvador and sitting there looking longingly into the eyes of Kilmar Abrego Garcia in a way that most of, our spouses haven't looked at us in going on a decade at this point. He's looking at Kilmar like he's about to fall in love. I mean, the only place I see someone look longingly into somebody else's eyes like that when I'm watching a Disney movie with my kids. It's crazy. So this is not going to be popular. It will be with the MSNBC crowd, which is largely 65-plus washed-up hippies. Same thing as the KCOR National Panhandler radio crowd. But when you get into Main Street America, and that could be urban Baltimore in this case, and you hear some of those interviews, it's like you're not connecting on the issue like you think you are outside of your echo chamber subset of voters who are always going to be there for you in the Democratic Party. But in terms of expanding that tent, in terms of bringing a lot of people back to the Democratic Party who have left it, right? Like there's a reason that the Republican Party has become more of a working class, diverse party than it's been arguably in 60 years. And this immigration issue is absolutely one of them. And yeah, I mean, the man on the street stuff is funny. It's like you interview half a dozen people, but when all these people are saying the same thing, it's got to make you think, right? It's got to make you take a step back and say, maybe I've got to look in the mirror, get out of my echo chamber for a minute, and wonder whether or not this is actually connecting with regular folks. Not the New York Times editorial board, but regular people. And if that's any example, I can promise you, Chris Van Halen, it's not.